Right, so we just talked about how we use Cassandra to spread the metadata load across every single node in the cluster. That means that as we grow the cluster, we grow more data, but because Cassandra runs on every single node in the cluster, we're also scaling or increasing our metadata processing capability at the same rate. So everything works just great. What's interesting is that what's true for Cassandra is also true for essentially the rest of the Nutanix CVM, the controller VM. So what I mean by that is that every process or every piece of functionality that runs in the cluster essentially runs uniformly across the entire cluster. That means every node or every CVM has a Stargate. Every CVM has a Zookeeper. Every CVM has some kind of Medusa component. I'll explain what those are, but the key point here is that every node runs every service. And what that means is, if I do that, not only do I not have a single point of failure because I have processes, or I have this functionality on every single node in a cluster, the key distributed systems kind of paradigm is that I also don't have any single point of control. So although at any point in time, one of these hosts may elect itself or be elected as the leader, that's a temporary election, and any node in the cluster can be the leader of any service at any time. That's how you get the resiliency. Now, if you think about it, this starts to sound very much like a microservices-based architecture. And if you're thinking along those lines, you're absolutely spot on. What each service does is talks to itself, it talks to its neighbors, and that, again, that's how we have the resiliency. So let's draw that up and make it a little bit more concrete. So I'm going to draw now a CVM. So hopefully you're familiar by now what the CVM is. And I'm going to draw it kind of in two halves, which is how I like to think about it anyway. And we'll start here with a Stargate service, okay? So Stargate I think of as having two halves. At the bottom half is the hardware. So the physical disk drives with their NVMe, spinning disk, SSD, whatever, that hardware is passed directly into the CVM. So we see that hardware directly. We don't have to go via the hypervisor. And Stargate is the process that's in charge of talking to that hardware. Okay, no other process gets to talk to the disks apart from Stargate. So you may have heard people say, well, Curator moves data around and it rebalances things. Curator is responsible for the policy. It tells Stargate what to do, and it's Stargate itself that moves the data around. No other process, nothing else gets to touch the disk. So you could imagine you would have all kinds of problems if multiple processes were trying to touch the disks at once. Stargate touches the disks, that's it. That's the bottom end. The top end is where Stargate talks to the VMs. So this can either be NFS if I'm using ESX, or it can be iSCSI if I'm on AHV. But basically, somewhere in space here, I'm talking to a virtual disk. And what Stargate does, and the reason why it's named Stargate, is that what Stargate does is it translates the old world of disks, NFS, SCSI, and so on and so forth. And Stargate basically translates that into the distributed world. The distributed systems, the AOS, all the magic that goes on inside the Nutanix. So, Stargate talks to its hardware, but where the magic comes in is that the Stargates all talk to each other. So, if this Stargate doesn't have his disks here, the data on his local disks, clearly he goes to talk to another Stargate and gets the data from those local disks. If this Stargate is writing somewhere here and he needs to replicate, he'll talk to some other remote Stargate and figure out where to write that copy. But how does he figure out which Stargate to talk to? Remember, we're going to try and distribute this data all around the cluster. So the Stargate has to talk to Cassandra somehow, because Cassandra, remember, is the one that has the metadata. So Stargate doesn't talk directly to Cassandra. Stargate talks to Cassandra via a thing called Medusa. Medusa is a piece of code that lives within Stargate, kind of. Think of it as a library. Remember, there's one of these on every single node. And what Medusa will do is interfaces with. Let's think about how to put this up. I'm going to put this on the side here. So Cassandra is a different process, still within the CVM, but outside of Stargate. So when Stargate wants to figure out where to do the replication, it will talk to Medusa. Medusa will talk to Cassandra, which is of course, running on every single node in the cluster. Figure out where to write the data, talk to the appropriate Stargate, and write the data in the right place. Now, one of the things that you may start to think is, well, wow, do I really have to talk to these Cassandra guys every time I want to read and write data? That sounds kind of slow, because Cassandra is distributed, the metadata for this stuff here that's even on my own local disks may not necessarily be in my Cassandra that's running locally on my host. It could be anywhere. It's replicated in a large cluster. There's a very good chance that I don't have the Cassandra data for my local stuff, because I don't want to create a hard binding here. Right? Everything should be independent. So what we do is Medusa, as well as talking to Cassandra, also acts as a cache. Right? Now we're starting to see, okay, how do we make these trade-offs? How do we square the circle of having distributed systems, data spread everywhere, right, which is great for resiliency and scale, but how do I get performance? And one of the ways that I do that is I have this interface to Cassandra and I allow it to cache. Now, clearly, if I do an update, I have to write through into Cassandra. But if I'm reading a lot of data locally, once I've cached that data from Cassandra, I can read that here. As a very small aside, one of the optimizations we've done recently is a thing called AES, which is the Autonomous Extent Store. And what AES does is, I'll just draw it like this. We kind of carve out some space on our local disks, and what was previously entirely kept within Cassandra, now that's spread between Cassandra and AES. AES is actually implemented with a database called RocksDB, which you can read about. The idea behind this was to say, well, we have all this metadata that we keep talking about. Some of this needs to be global, but some of this can be local. So think about this kind of sort of a high level. We might say, in Cassandra, we might want to say, hey, your data for this virtual disk lives on this node, let's say. But within this node, I have to go figure out on which disk it is and whereabouts on that disk my data lives. That data does not need to be global. Once I've figured out which host I'm on, the information about which particular disk it is can actually live within that host. So that's an additional optimization. So we have Medusa and we have AES, which is designed to speed up the fact that we have this global metadata that can be a little bit slow. So we have a cache and we have AES that allows us to speed this up. That's on the read side. Now, what about if I want to do a write? What about if I want to write, just say 4K into my into my virtual disk here. Remember I said if I'm updating metadata, I have to write through the cache out into Cassandra. Remember, Cassandra is not only spread across all of my hosts, it is also replicated. Even in an RF2 cluster, my metadata is replicated 3 ways. So imagine, for my simple 4 kilobyte write, I have to write to 3 Cassandras, 2 of which are probably going to be over the wire, maybe even 3 of which. That's a huge overhead simply to update 4K. If I'm writing 1 meg, that's not too bad, right? So I'm putting 1 megabyte of data, I've got to send that through down to the disk, that takes time. But for 4K, I should be able to write that to a piece of SSD in about 400 microseconds. Well, actually, I should be able to do it in about 100 or 200 microseconds. But if I have to go and update all these remote Cassandra databases, that becomes a problem. And we fixed that by using something called the oplog, and we'll talk about that next.